The final step. Unfortunately, this may not be the final tutorial, but I promise you we're getting close. We have put this together, I think, at the tail end of historical stuff and tried to do this, as the title would suggest, connecting our history to the present. I've added this little phrase at the end, on the ground, to this tutorial because that's really what this is. This is the architectural piece. This is Gil Hanse's work, his suggestions for every hole, his master plan for Colonial Country Club, and we'll basically start going through his work. And hopefully by the end of it, you'll have a very good sense not only of kind of his suggested changes, but why, what they're grounded in, and again, spoiler alert, many of the changes, many of the suggestions are built directly on the historical golf courses. All right, we have compiled a chart here that I think has some really good information on it, specifically relating to Gil's work on classic golf courses. And again, I think this is an important distinction. There's some that have carved out a pretty strong niche on new golf. There are some that have carved out a pretty strong niche on restoration renovations of classic golf courses. There are not a lot that have carved out a significant amount of really good work in both. Gil is clearly an architect that has. But I want to focus less on his new golf. Now, again, if you wanted to go to his website, and I would encourage you to do that, it'll have his new golf on there. It's an impressive list. It's going to be even more impressive as the years go on. But I want to focus on his classic golf course work, renovation and restorations of classic golf course, because that's what we have asked him to do here, to take Colonial and make it the best golf course that it can be. So let's start with the list and the courses and the architects. Marion East, Hugh Wilson, Winged Foot West, Tillinghast, Fisher's Island, Rayner, Country Club Brookline, Campbell, Oakland Hills, Ross, L.A. Country Club North, George Thomas, Southern Hills, Perry Maxwell, again, a kind of a sister golf club. He's done work on Perry Maxwell golf courses. Baltusrol, Upper and Lower, Tillinghast, Winged Foot East, Tillinghast, Kittenset, William Flynn, Quaker Ridge, another Tillinghast, Plainfield, Ross, Aronimick, Ross, Sleepy Hollow Country Club, a great C.B. McDonald golf course, and the Creek Club, another C.B. McDonald golf course. And then here we included Colonial as a point of comparison. So, you look at these architects, and it's kind of it is the pantheon of the greats of U.S. golf course classic architecture. Maybe McKenzie, maybe Colt, but pretty much everybody's here. It's an amazingly comprehensive list. Another thing we've included here I think is very important. A lot of this work has been done recently, almost all of it in the 2000s. 2014, 16, 9, 2015, 6, 18, a bunch done there. 13, 2002, 2016, 2006. So, this is also clearly an architect that is in the prime of work on these classic venues. This is not somebody that did, his best work 10, 15, 20 years ago and is not doing much current work. He's clearly doing a lot of current work on classic golf courses. And then to kind of bookend that, I have this category called future. We're going to see some of our nation's championships held on some of these classic golf courses that have been renovated or restored by Gil Hanse. The 2020 Open at Wingfoot West, 2022 Open at Brookline, 2023 Open at Los Angeles Country Club North. Baltusrol is going to see the 2029 PGA. And the 2027 PGA at Aronimink. So, current work on some of our best classic golf courses, and they are thought well enough by the people that want to hold our finest championships that they're included in future lists. In other words, they're not becoming irrelevant. It's just the opposite. They're becoming perhaps more relevant. And then finally, I did include the rankings because I know that's what a lot of people kind of gravitate towards and want to talk about. Now, I would say I don't think Gil does. He's clearly not been brought here to let's bump up our ranking a bunch. It may in fact happen, but that's not the point. The point is to do the best, most authentic, historically relevant architecture on a classic golf course, and then let the rankings fall where they may. But it's not irrelevant either. And the fact that Colonial has been slipping over the last 30 or 40 years to now we're at 146, it may not be something we have to do something about, but it's important to at least note it and to look at where we compare to these that Gil has done work on. So again, you have 5 in the top 20. Actually, I think he has 6 now in the top 20 because I believe the 1920 Golf Digest rankings that just came out has Los Angeles Country Club at 19. So I think he has 6 now out of the top 20 golf courses that he's done work on. An impressive feat. Southern Hills, we'll see where it goes from here. It's at 35. Baltusrol, both golf courses here. Winged Foot East. Again, not the most important thing in the world, but if you look at 1920, it's at 52 now. So it's 10 ranks higher than it was when this chart was compiled. And likewise, Sleepy Hollow at 101 has cracked the top 100. I think it's now at 89 in 19 or 20. So what do the rankings mean? Well, it's not what you want to try to do as your number one goal, clearly, but it's not unimportant, and it is something to pay attention to in terms of just the general relevance that your golf course has, and especially when you have the historical legacy that Colonial does. That's important to keep it as relevant and as current as you can. And then finally, I think one other observation I'd like to make. I think it's equally important. I think it may be more important than the Golf Digest rank, frankly. If you look at this list, you also see what I would call repeat work for the same members, the same clubs. So you have Wingfoot on here, both golf courses, East and West. He started with the East. They brought him back to do the West. He's done both LA Country Club golf courses, South and North. He's done both golf courses at Baltusrol. I would argue that tells you about member satisfaction of the work. If he was just brought in to make the golf course harder for Opens or PGA championships, or to somehow go up a few notches in the rankings, I don't think you would have members invite him back to do the other golf course. The fact that they have and do, and the fact that if you look at his website, you will see ongoing, besides almost every golf course he's done. That is, he has a continuing relationship with these golf courses. I think that tells you that the membership is thrilled with the work. The people that play it every day, frankly, I would argue that's more important. You want to make sure that when the work is done, that the people that play it all the time are also thrilled with the work. So, putting all together, you have clearly an architect that's doing some of the best restoration and renovation work on our best classic golf courses. He is still clearly relevant, and the trend line on many of these golf courses he's done is in the right direction in terms of ranking. But more importantly, he is being asked back after doing work to do more work at these golf courses, which I think speaks to member satisfaction. Guiding principle of renovation ideas. I would say if you look at this quote, you you get a lot of Gil. The old guys knew best. Um, when he first came out to Colonial and was looking at the property and did his walk through the whole golf course, and then met with a few of us to kind of just talk about it and impressions, it was this phrase that I took out of it, and also this very strong notion that if you look at the golf course work he does, either in new golf and especially in all the renovations, restorations that he's done on classic golf courses. If you recall the list a couple slides ago of all that work, um, the reason why he loves doing that work and the reason why people that have him do that work on these classic golf courses have him back and are happy with his work is because he believes this, that those classical architects understood something, about how to do golf that maybe some people have not thought about or forgot about or whatever today, and that a light hand and not kind of showing off and using natural landforms and making the golf course look and play, not so punitively all the time, and that golf should be interesting and fun. Um, I think, without doubt, encapsulates his kind of general principles that he uses when he does golf course work. So, Colonial does have a unique and impressive architectural history with John Breedemus and Perry Maxwell. We've talked about that. We've outlined that. And that history should be honored, used as a source of inspiration, and where desirable, integrated back into the golf course. So we are going to focus on this part, especially here at the end, there in that phrase, integrated back into the golf course. We are going to see how Mr. Hanse is doing that. So as we go through hole by hole the design suggestions, I'm going to have noted in red in the description of the work ones that are directly referenced to historical relevance. That is, there are at least 48 suggested changes that are directly tied to the historical golf courses. That is to say, to put them back, to reinstitute those elements into his changes. 48 are directly related to our kind of the historical golf courses, which again, I think tells you that's a lot. It tells you a lot about this notion that the old guys knew best. Some of these that you're going to see include removing extraneous mounding, lowering greens more into the profile, and green surrounds and bunkering closer to the original grades and shapes, and then reintroducing kind of a rougher classic look. In addition to that, adding or subtracting hazards, many of them bunkers, based on either the Breedemist or Maxwell golf course, and again, returning them to more traditional shapes. And most notably, I think, especially with 8, using the original 8 and 13 greens, two of the clearly, more iconic and tremendous holes that we, again, lost because of flood control, trying to get them back as much as possible. This is an element to Gil's work that I will tell you was really really good to see. That how quickly and how in fact how much he embraces this notion that we need to make golf courses more enjoyable to play for everybody. I believe it's this kind of, again, a lack of ego of not the point not being to make it difficult. That's pretty easy to do, to make it enjoyable to play while still making it challenging for the best golfers in the world, knowing that we have them on our golf course every year. So let me talk about this a little bit, how this is done. The first bullet point here is really important, and it's something that I've had ladies, God bless them, talk to me about forever. Can we do anything about this? And I've always just kind of said, well, yeah, it's just real hard to move tees forward, without moving them all and regrading, and you're in front of the rest of the tees, so you can't do it in play, and you can't really just mow fairways back because we have rough grasses that don't mow out and look right, and et cetera, et cetera. So in the new design, all of the fairways are going to be extended back basically and tying directly into the front tees. You'll see this when we start describing them. So that the short grass will come back to the front tees. And obviously then allow anybody either from that tee or even farther back a little bit, the white tees, maybe even gold tees, that if you don't hit the ball well, or if you don't carry it very, very far, or, again, you just can't hit it that far in the air, you're going to get on shortcut and you're going to roll out, as opposed to getting caught up in our rough and just having the ball stop dead in its tracks. And as you know, especially when we grow the rough for the tournament, it can be miserable. And making the golf course just much harder than it needs to be. So something we've talked about wanting to do for a long time. Gil embraced it, and that's part of the design. In addition to that, he's firmly of the belief that we need to have a more forward set of tees. And in this instance, since the fairways are coming back to our current kind of forward tees, or roughly where they are, we would have a set of tees kind of in the fairways. Whether they're just setting on the fairways or they're raised up a little bit, I don't think we know that yet. But it's just a strong sense that we need to have a set of tees that plays around 5,000 yards or so. Again, this kind of thing you're seeing in golf everywhere. Play it forward. Play it forward. There's just a very strong knowledge in golf that it takes too long, and again, it's not as enjoyable as it need to be, mainly because people are playing tees that are too far. So we allow ourselves to kind of move everybody up here if we desire to do that. Ladies' tees could be the 5,000 yard tees if they want to play it there, or juniors. The current ladies' tees would be seniors' tees, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, this third bullet point, difficult maybe to get you to appreciate this, but I think if you think about how you play the golf course, again, especially if you're not quite as skilled, you'll understand how this should make playing it much more enjoyable. When we lower the green's elevations, and again, this is, I think, largely historical, they have become raised over time. two things will happen. It will be easier if you're running the ball from the fairway to the green to judge that and to do that properly, because the green's down and you don't have such a pitch between the fairway and the approach, where a lot of ours kind of go up. They'll be much more kind of the same elevation going into the green. In addition to that, if you have your greens lower and your bunkers, then your bunker lips are in fact lower. So when you're in a greenside bunker, in many instances, you won't be carrying as much height. You'll see more of the green. You'll be able to just kind of get the ball out and get it onto the green to get it rolling, as opposed to, hitting one just a little bit fat or whatever, and hitting the top edge of the bunker and having it roll back in. Now, this doesn't affect, professionals. They don't do that. So it won't have, I don't think, much impact at all on them, but it should really help juniors, seniors, ladies, and just, higher handicappers that are challenged by our very high, steep-faced bunkers that will come down some. I'm not going to spend as much time as I guess I could on this part, some of which we've talked about a little bit. The naturalization of this last bullet point, frankly, of our watersheds on the backside, and this notion that, in the area where we have a concrete bottom, that would turn into a creek, and that we would take that creek like it used to across 10 and 18 and in a more natural form, where all the water would get out and get into that watershed there to the right of 11 and off the golf course in a natural way, improving our ability to take water and not have it impact the golf course, and have a much more natural, much more kind of historically accurate golf course like the original. And part of Gil's descriptions here is going to use this term barranca. Let me spend just a minute. I think we're going to stop using that term as much, and we're going to use more descriptive terms, I think, for North Texas or Texas in general, like, dry washes or gullies or things like that. So I think we discovered that once you start talking about barrancas, there's a big question mark that a lot of people have in their head, kind of me included, about what that actually is. So, for example, the left of 5, there's a picture from the golf tournament, I think in the late 40s or maybe early 50s or something. One picture that had somebody kind of down in that gully, and you can see where there's some bare dirt in places, and it looks just a little rougher, and there's some patchier grass and things like that. That's kind of what, at least the left of 5, which we'll call that a dry wash or something like that. The intent to be not to make it a bunch of, let's say, native grass where you go left to 5 and all of a sudden you can't find your ball. That's the last thing. That's not original, and that's not desirable, especially on a hole that's hard enough. So roughening up the left to 5, for example, in fact, it goes all the way, that low that you see that used to be, a drainage system originally, that used to kind of carry water from 7 really across the golf course before it was interrupted with cart paths and things by 5 and all the way down and out. We're going to make that look a little bit more like a not quite as tightly maintained dry wash. And then the second bullet point, opening up views from the golf course to our watersheds. One thing that's very apparent, we have more creeks, watersheds, areas that go through our golf course that we really don't make much use of, either in playing around them or through them, but more than that, even just the visual aspects of them. We're not suggesting all of a sudden making, these watersheds, moving them really much. It's more integrating the golf course more with them and to them. So the right of 5, you can't know really, unless you know that the Trinity is over there. It's just a wall of trees. And as such, um, and if you look at older pictures, that was not the case. You had big trees, and then a lot of the underbrush gone, and you could see through the big trees down the bank into the Trinity. So you could see that elevation change. There's 25 feet of elevation change. You play five, and you could just as soon be, the right side of a park with a road over there as far as what you visually see. So connecting yourself to the Trinity. Same thing on 7, left of 7. Oh, just opening up the brush areas so get this feeling of that creek down there. 8, doing a lot of that on that left bank. In fact, most of the trees on the left bank, all of which have volunteered up over time, to where when that green goes over there, all of a sudden you're playing over this big bluff that's still there. You just don't know it's there, to the green, like the old number 8. And then 11, the same thing. The right of 11, there's some areas there where we can brush out some areas and just make it much more a part of the experience of playing the golf course. So this is, I guess, overall trying to take our watersheds and drainage areas, or whatever you want to call them, and get them much closer to the historical golf course. Okay, this is the device we're going to use to do this. This is Gil's device. This is how he um, drew his master plan work to describe it, and he said he has taken this directly from kind of classic architecture, most notably Donald Ross. So using A, B, C, etc., as you can see, to describe then these areas, what the intent is, and what is going on. So, along with that, a couple other important things. So, fainted dotted lines are existing golf course features. For example, this is the current line of this fairway. I believe this is 15, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is 15. And like a few of these things that he has done throughout, you'll see this, where he has a fairway bunker that might pinch in a little bit more. He has taken the area in front of the bunker in case you want to play short of the hazard, to play kind of safer, that you actually have a little bit more room. So the fairway expands here. Colored in green areas are suggested changes to the primary golf course areas. So here, tees, I think, are going down a little bit. This tee kind of complex is being altered slightly. Again, this fairway thing here, the green here is notated. So these are primary golf course areas changes. And then the fainter green yellow areas are suggested changes to rough or more out of play areas. So anything that's a barranca, and then as you can see, this area right here, the fainter yellow around the fairway bunkers in the rough is what is meant here. Dashed red lines on trees are removals. We have one here suggested. And then dashed green on trees are new plantings. In this case, on 15, he would like to establish this kind of almost wooded area, or much more wooded area, with rougher grass over here on this bank on the right of 15. So these are new plantings. And then suggested cart path changes noted. At this point, we haven't done much of a deep dive at all on cart paths, so don't read anything into, other than he does have some suggestions about cart paths needing to move to make, a green work, or to make a green complex work. So those, I think, you should pay attention to. But as far as how much cart path, whether we're ultimately going to have continuous cart paths or whatever, that's a discussion that has not been had yet, although we are going to need to have it. And I will tell you, as the superintendent, I am a fan of continuous cart paths to be able to protect the golf course, to get people out there on inclement weather. But again, we'll have this discussion at a later date. All right, let's dive into this. Number one, we'll go through, I think, A, B, C, D, E, and F, and kind of in order, at least to start with. And it may pick up the pace some as we get going, once you kind of get a sense of what we're doing here. So, A, remove path and relocate starter hut. I don't know that actually the starter hut will need to be relocated. I think the point there primarily is that he thinks that's kind of a neat old school element, would like to keep it. But what he'd like to do there is, again, remember that old picture I showed you, the original aerial, 1937? You could kind of see on there how much bigger that upper putting green was. Of course, it was the only putting green we had then. And then it certainly was the case that it kind of just led right into one of those nodes, kind of led right into 1T. And we like to do that again, take the cart path out of that area, make it go around the putting green kind of on the lower side, and make it a much more intimate kind of, or sense of arrival and putting green, and you kind of walk over to the tee on grass, and real neat, I think, again, like the original, and something I think that'll look good and also work well. Probably by shifting the wall back and over a little bit gains some yardage, right? 15 for sure. And certainly not anything that'll hurt anything on number one. B, this is that when I talked about enhancing the enjoyment of the golf course, this is what we're talking about here. So you have our existing fairway line here, and you have the distance to carry between our existing front tee and the fairway, and that goes away. So we have the fairways coming all the way back and tying in to the front tee like this. So from here, and even frankly here and here, if you happen to not catch it well, instead of getting caught up with is currently now rough grass, you're going to get on the shortcut, and you'll at least roll down the fairway some length here, and not be penalized by this rough here in between the tee and the fairway. Also, a forward tee, so we can play the golf course closer to around 5,000 yards. C. So what I've done here, you'll see this throughout. I've tried to note the historical connections. So this is the first one I've kind of come to. And I'll basically just have 48 of these red numbers throughout the hole to note where he is making a change for a specific reference to the old golf course. For example, C. Remove first fairway bunker. That's this right here. Here's our existing bunker, and then here is our second bunker. Remove first fairway bunker and rebuild second bunker expanded to create one large bunker as per original design. Expand fairway left in front of new bunker. Again, I think I mentioned this a few slides back. This bunker gets enlarged. It kind of takes up really most of the area of our second bunker, but does come back some. Fairway kind of moves around it more than our current fairway does. But he adds some fairway here if you, again, are playing short of the bunker that would help you stay in short grass. D, rebuild bunker in place. And expand fairway in front as per drawing. So that's this area. So this bunker he likes, going to keep it. E, rebuild bunker shifted downrange and angled in more. So here's the existing bunker. It's not a huge change here, just kind of angling in a little bit more, pinching this just a little. F, rebuild left and right approach bunkers expanded as per drawing. Regrade the surrounds to eliminate two basins. So it's this area here. We have a basin currently right here and right here. He's not a big fan of those. That is drainage that goes into a drainage grate and goes out. Um, Most of that's not original because again, most of the greens used to be drained a little bit differently. You didn't have USG greens, you didn't have such steep bunkers. So it's going to grade this front in a way to where the water will shed off naturally and not kind of drain into these basins that we currently have. Um, G, remove one small tree and reroute cart path 25 feet to the right. Remove additional trees as needed to fit the path. So this green is coming over a little bit and back a little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit. And then this bunker is going away because it's not original. And in order to make this kind of, increase the area here between the green edge and the cart path, this cart path's getting over. So the tree coming out here and some trees here, kind of really between the green and the T that are being removed. And then H, remove right green side bunker and have rough grass slope under the green. So the amount of rough here is kind of increasing. Rebuild green at the same elevation. So this is an example of a green not going down into the ground a whole lot. I think what you'll see though is this front elevation will come up, so it'll look less like it's perched up. But basically at the same elevation, and reestablish. Here's number 2. Reestablish strong right to left cross slope as per U.S. Open program description. So again, to kind of fit this green a little bit more naturally into the lay of the land. The lay of the land is strongly right to left. So this green will move more right to left, like the original Maxwell green. I rebuild left green side bunker, shifted back, and restore large bunkers to back right of green. So this bunker configuration, especially here, much more like the original Maxwell green. So again, another reference to the original green, this grass island here, like the original bunker, Maxwell bunker. And then J, remove 4 green tees behind green, like these right here. So taken as a whole, you could kind of see the architectural intent on a T to kind of get it closer to an old school thing. You have these fairway coming back, front tee forward. You have a bunker change like an old bunker, a little bit of increase of fairway in front of it. Minor bunker changes here, a green moved over and back slightly, but redone with a little bit more shape and movement like the Maxwell green, and the bunkering more like the Maxwell green complex. You'll see this same kind of thing throughout the golf course. All right, number 2. Remove 2 trees. These are actually the same 2 trees that were referenced in the previous slides. This is not 2 additional trees. Build a new cart path right of T complex outside hedgerow. Now, I'm not sure if we'll go outside or inside, or this hedgerow will move, but it clearly wanted to get rid of this kind of, again, kind of unnatural feeling cart path in between the green and the tee and get it over here on this side. However that's done, it'll be, since this is moving this way, it'll come around and go down the right side of the tee. You still have a cart path. You're still going by the tee. It just won't be here. Fairway coming back again. So you can't, since we have a big road here that we're not taking out, we can't move this one back to the front of the tee, but it's the same thing. It's much further back, so you don't have to carry as far to get in a shortcut. This tree actually is a sick pecan that's already gone. So that can go away. Fairway expanding up this left side. This bunker, which is really not original, going away. And again, will really help an area where, as you know, we have a lot of issues with that big pecan. It's a great tree, but it's shady. And so to take that bunker out and to just kind of have rough grass here, I think will be helpful. Um, this this bunker will just kind of being rebuilt kind of roughly in place. Some tree plantings here, adding trees here, and removing a couple of sycamore trees here. Um, and then we get into kind of more formal historical references, add new bunker as per original. So this bunker here was original Maxwell bunker, putting that back. Also kind of gives it a little bit more shape to the fairway then. Expand right side of the fairway. So this bunker kind of pinches in. Fairway gets a little bit bigger here. Remove mound and shift cart path left. The mound part could have been considered a historical reference, but I didn't. Remove tree right of green and rebuild 3 green side bunkers in place, expanding the right as per original and tying each in better with the new green. So green shapes a little bit more like the original, expands a little bit more and more of a square shaped green. These bunker placements a little bit more like the original. Again, there you have it. Number 3. And I should have mentioned this the first 2, so hopefully you haven't been completely confused, but I apologize for that. These pictures I've put on the left side, okay, this is kind of just, this is the last time this was done was really Keith's work, Keith Foster's work in 2008. When he did his work, he redid the map. So this is actually out of a big map that's in my office. So I've used this as a frame of reference, and I will bounce back and forth a little bit more here, and I'll starting with this hole to compare it to the existing golf course. So I've tried to just scale this down to make it look very similar to Gill's work, which is what we've been describing here on the right. So this is our existing golf course from a map that Keith did. It's very close. This is Gill's work. So number 3, remove tree right of T complex. This is a tree over there kind of to the right of 2 green. Expand fairway back to the tee. Again, this notion here. Fairway gets much wider here as a result. Pick up more fairway. Bunkers, we basically talked about this before. I guess the Maxwell hole had 2 bunkers. We returned to 2 bunkers. This fairway bunker here, currently you have this bunker, and this bunker. Well, here, let's use the map. It looks like this. You could kind of see the evolution here. What Keith did, which again was, I think, necessary at the time. Here was the bunkers before he found it, these 3 bunkers like this. You may not remember this, but you can see the tree line here. That's pretty accurate. It used to be the case that you could get into these bunkers and be behind the tree line. You kind of had the double hazard. You'd be in a fairway bunker and have to negotiate trees and try to hit it out of a bunker and under a tree. So by moving them out and moving the fairway out, he did make the dog leg sharper, but a lot of that was to get these hazards here outside of the tree line. So what Gill's doing, kind of picking up from that, is making the bunkers themselves a little bit more historical, more in this shape. So 2 bunkers from 3. This area right here, one of the things, when Keith did this shoved out, what happened was this got a little bit more punitive here, where this faded, kind of the slope was from this way to this way. So even if you negotiated the bunkers to some extent, you would hop over into the rough. He's going to lift this up a little bit to where it kind of supports this area. So if you're kind of trying to carry the bunker, you should go into a fairway that's pitched into you a little bit more. That's what D is. And then if you look at the greens complex, 3 bunkers. We've had 3 bunkers. When Keith did the work, he just kind of replaced the bunkers and redesigned them slightly. But this is not original. The original Maxwell green had 1 bunker sitting right here. And that is what Gill is putting back. Historical reference here, 8. remove approach bunker and bunker left of green, and then remove 2 pecans behind the green. So again, bunkers more historical, fairways back, pitching this right side a little bit more to support the ball a little bit better, and putting the green and complex back as much as possible, more like the Maxwell green. Okay, number 4, same kind of thing. Let's start here as well. We've talked about this, but these 2 bunkers showed up when Dick Wilson did his work. Again, he had them much more scalloped and different, so they've evolved over time. They've become rounder. Keith basically just kind of cleaned them up, but kept them largely the same. And this green shape, we've got it kind of back closer to the historical green shape, which Gil is keeping here. But the bunkers are coming out. Historical reference number 9, remove 2 bunkers on left and expand approach on left as right per drawing, because 4 Maxwell green did not have bunkers. I don't know that he hates them there. It's just kind of, they're not original to the old golf course, don't need them. The golf course, the hole's hard enough, and he can grade and integrate the surrounds such that it'll be interesting and challenging without bunkers. Similarly, remove green, rebuild green at grade. So actually, the green here again, this is one that is not coming down, unlike some that we've commented on. But removing some of the bumps on the left and the right, some of the slope there, especially in this area, and expanding the approach area. The idea being that you can run the ball into the green easier than you currently can. So again, take out bunkers, clean up the green surround, and make it closer to the Maxwell green. Number 5, here we've got a number of things, so I'll spend a minute here. I think the slide to follow actually has some pictures of what we described about the right side of 5 and the left side of 5 call. I'll save that kind of for that part. So again, the back of this shortcut is expanded some into the tees. So similar to what we have, it's just more of it. Fairway comes all the way back, in this case, to incorporate 2 tees. So incorporates kind of all of the tees here. I have a forward tee, a new forward tee, and this really is the middle tee that the shortcut will come back to. So even more of the same here. A little bit more fairway up this left side as a result. This is the area to designate, leaving all the big trees but brushing out so you can see the Trinity. And then this area right here is the Barranca thing, and I'll describe that in the next slide just a little bit more, so I'll save that for that. Let's talk about some of these historical references. Well, we've mentioned the one, thin out the right like it used to be, to where you could see the Trinity, restoring the Barranca on the left side. 13, remove all 3 green side bunkers and expand approaches per drawing. Again, these 3, Keith moved them a little bit. You know, this bunker came in a little bit. It used to be right here, if you can see the dotted line. These 2 are put back about the same place, green done about the same. This shape is not really original. The original green was much rounder, if you recall, when we looked at that. So this is getting back closer to the original shape. This one does come down, so rebuild plus or minus 2 feet lower into the profile. That is, again, a historical. If you remember the picture of 5 before and after, you can see that. So 5's got a lot of historical references and a lot of things trying to get it make it play and look more like the original green. All right, real quickly, we've showed you this before. I just wanted to return to it to amplify a little bit on this with pictures. What the best we can, what we're doing. If this is the left of 5, an old picture from the we think early 50s. This is the existing dry wash. And you can see kind of some barer dirt, some patchier grass, um, and you can see a guy playing out of it. So this is the kind of the intent on the left of 5 to just make it look more, roughen it up, make it look more like a dry wash, but to not make it more punitive to play out of. So and then here, this is I think a little bit earlier picture, but this is a particular perspective where we can see the relationship between 5 fairway, which is right here, and the right side of the Trinity here, and how you could, in fact, for many years, see through the big trees to the Trinity. Now, you can see some really big gaps here. We have certainly had more vegetation grow up down there that are now big trees. We're not going to get back to this at all. But we do need to reestablish, I think, clearly enough gaps and enough brushing here, especially right at the bank, to where when you play 5, you can see glimpses of the Trinity, and you know that you have this tremendous elevation difference, is 25 feet or whatever from here to here, that right now with the wall of trees, you could be anywhere. You're just not connected to the Trinity at all. All right, number 6. A continued restored dry wash from 5 hole across of T complex. So the left side of 5 is going to continue and go in front of, as we currently have, the gully, whatever you want to call it there, in front of 6T. And then it's going to terminate, we'll see when we look at 7, the next slide, here on the right side of 7, like it kind of currently does. That little low in front of the bunker on the right side of 7. This fairway will come back to the edge of this dry wash, the naturalized area here. So it won't go all the way back to this tee, because you'd have to get rid of all this to do that. You have to fill all this in, and we definitely don't want to do that. We want to enhance this low. But you do end up with much less carry here. You're picking up all this area from this tee. You only have to carry the barranca itself. And then you also a new tee established on the other side of the dry wash, to where you don't have to carry anything at all. Fairway expanded in front of the traps. The traps aren't a whole lot different than the existing. Shape changes. This one pinches in a little bit more, and then we pick up more fairway in front in case you want to play safe in front of the hazards. And then the green area definitely changes. I don't think this is certainly not a one-to-one historical reference, although the best historical reference we have is this one here. Rebuild green around 3 feet lower. When we showed you 6 before, like many, you could see how much higher it's gotten, around 3 feet, I think. So it's going to get much more on the ground. And I think the green basically also is shifting to the right. Roughly the same shape, maybe gets a little bit narrower, but basically shifts to the right. And then this bunker, originally there were 2 bunkers, but this is not, like I said, originally the place where the bunkers were. They were kind of both in the front, and this approach is much wider. So he's definitely picking up a bunch of area here, but kind of narrowing and pinching in a little bit on the left side. And this bunker is kind of splitting the difference between our 2 existing bunkers. So the big thing here is this green coming down in the profile like the original. Number 7. Tee shifts over about 10 feet. So this is the current line, moves over a little bit to the left. Fairway back to the big road. So it's kind of like 2. It can't come out. It can't come all the way and tie into this tee because there's a road in between it. So it just kind of goes all the way back to the road and will tie in as far back as it can. This bunker, it stays about the same place as the current bunker. It just kind of gets reshaped a little bit more historically old school looking bunker. D, we remove, again, brush out some of this area here, leave the big trees, but so you can see down in the watershed a little bit more. E, remove the 3 green side bunkers. This is the current bunker configuration. And this bunker here especially is really interesting. So this turns into a bunker with kind of a rougher edge because this bunker is going to tie into the barranca. So again, if you recall that picture of the right side of 7 from the US Open picture, it had this kind of rough and ready look, and there was a tree that sat here. We might try to put one farther back here potentially. It can't shade the green. We can't have that, but something back in here to look a little bit more like that. But this whole right side is going to be a rougher thing. This bunker is going to tie into this barranca kind of look all the way down here as it goes out in front of 6. This is frankly kind of a new little it's kind of a rougher, odd shaped bunker. Certainly more like kind of Maxwell did some of his bunkers that he's introducing. So instead of having this one little bitty pot bunker, this will be a much more extensive bunker here. No bunker in the back. Okay, number 8. This is fun. As we've talked about with historical treatment, you know, the old 8 that we lost in 68 when the Trinity was rerouted and straightened out was tremendous. You basically had a T that kind of pointed off a little bit. You basically played around this big bluff of the Trinity River to a green over the bluff. So you sat right out here and you were staring right at the Trinity on a bluff, playing over a bluff to a green. So the intent here is to basically do an obverse, a mirror image of the original shown in a picture here. This is from the open drawing. We currently have this creek. This is the creek that was tied into to make our watershed there on the right of 11 that used to tie into the Trinity. We had to still connect it, obviously, to the Trinity. So this is this creek right here that now goes like this and then goes underneath right here. Here's the Trinity now. Goes underneath right here into that big square culvert box. On this picture, that would be right here. Okay? This is the same bluff. It's been altered, but this is from actually 1968. So this picture, the immediate work, this is the current location of our green. So this was dug and expanded. And then there was a big culvert, I'm guessing right here, probably a much smaller, just normal big culvert at the time. But all this was put in and tied in to get our watershed out. This is what it used to look like in 68, even on the new number 8. So if you take this picture right here visually, we go back to this, we remove all the trees on this side of the bluff of the creek. Right now, again, it's just a wall of trees. You can't tell what's going on down there. This is much more what it will look like, what it used to look like. And if you move the green over, so from here to over here, you end up with something very similar to the old number 8 without having to cut a new creek or do a whole lot to this watershed. You just have to move the green over, clear out and renaturalize this left side, and you end up with this really, I think, will be a spectacular hole. So here's the current location. So this green is going to go left, and then it's going to be kind of reconfigured much more like the original green. Green shape looks a little bit more like the original. Put in these 2 little bunkers on the left side that are these 2 bunkers on the right side. You have this big freeform bunker on the right side of the new 8 that is like this big freeform bunker on the left, right here. So this is basically taking the existing 8 and trying to get it as close to possible to the old 8, a mirror image of it. And I think it's going to do a tremendous job. I think this is clearly going to be a new signature hole for Colonial Country Club when it's done. Okay, number 9. As you can see, I've complicated it a little bit with a little drawing from the 1935 Breedemus Golf Course, but I'll get to that in a minute. So a fairway goes back, basically to the big road as far back as it can go to reduce the carry from the tees carrying over rough. Extraneous mounding removed here on this left side. So this, if you recall, when you're playing left side of 9 here in this area, but in front of the bunkers, is a big mound that comes out. One bunker instead of 2, and a little bit more of a kind of a Maxwell looking bunker, little grass islands in the middle. These bunkers just kind of get reconfigured. Now the left side of 9 past this fairway bunker picks up area, gets bigger, more fairway. And then here's the part where the reason why I included this. This complex is a little bit more of a homage or I guess a reference to the Breedemus golf course. Maxwell put in the pond for the Open, made it all carry. But as you can see right here, this is the picture, and I flipped it upside down. So this says 6, but as you can see, that's 7 upside down. This is, in fact, the same orientation that these two are, but the drawing had it the other way. So that's why this says 6. This is, in fact, 9. And this is a drawing of the, again, it was in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram to describe the original Breedemus holes, which is the only drawing we have of the original Breedemus golf course. But one thing is clear is this was not originally a pond. It was this left kind of big sloughy area, creek watershed that came through here and then kind of cut back. Kind of everything over here where the current putting green and all that kind of stuff was just a big low slough with trees and wilderness kind of area originally. So Gil has put a little sliver of approach here up the left side to make it more similar to the Breedemus hole. And potentially bringing into, let's say if you pull the thing way forward, maybe making this a drivable par 4 with, again, some considerable hazards to negotiate, but you could possibly do that with this configuration. Here you clearly can't do that because you have a pond you can't carry. So, an interesting Breedemus reference here. All right, number 10. Let's start at the tee. This tee is sliding over significantly. This tree coming out and this tee moving over to do two things. I think play a little bit more like the historical angle, but also to unpack one of our biggest, well, the biggest choke point we have on the golf course by a mile is this kind of area right here. So coming down to the putting green from the clubhouse and negotiating kind of around this, and then coming from 9 and going to 1T, and this getting over and shortening this back a little bit significantly helps with the worst choke point in the golf course, where you have putting green hill and the right of 9 and 10T and coming off the putting green and all this in one spot. And then in addition to that, doing this fairway back on the right side significantly farther back, like we've been doing, making this fairway to where, and a new tee established here to where you can play over short grass. So not having to carry everybody having to carry the pond here and getting people over here will be a tremendous assistance to those that hate being over here trying to carry the pond. Okay, see, we'll spend a whole lot of time here, but this is kind of the naturalization of the creek that goes out in front and connects to our existing watershed. D, this fairway or approach area is expanded, kind of comes back further, widens on the right side a little bit. This bunker goes back a little bit. This bunker just kind of gets reconfigured a little bit. This green comes down about 18 inches, so not a tremendous amount, but it is getting in the ground a little bit more like the original number 10. All right, 11. First thing to note is this because of the scale, these are scale drawings that Gil has on a grid, wouldn't fit on one piece. So this is the T section. The very back tee is actually going up a little bit. He just feels like it's a little bit too far detached. But you can see here again the fairway coming back to the forward tee, all the way back to the forward tee. Because the back tee is going up about 10 yards or so, the bunkers are just kind of getting moved up. What is this bunker is essentially this bunker, and a new bunker is put in here, but they're going to look relatively the same, going basically the same spot. Here's a reference here. F, add new bunker on left, 130 yards from center of green. Pinch this area a little bit. H, rebuild bunker in place. That's this bunker. As you can see, this bunker here goes away. Remove right fairway bunker, thin out vegetation on right, expand fairway. So this is, again, trying to get more intimate to the creek a little bit, to get the golf course over a little bit more closely aligned to the creek, and then some of this thinning here to where, you'll see this bank and you'll know it's there, and you're playing a little bit closer to the right side. Rebuild green shifted back 20 yards. It's probably going to be more like 10 to 15 and 7 yards to the right. So the green basically is going back a little bit and right a little bit to, again, get it a little bit more intimate to the creek on the right side. Bunkers done very similarly to the current bunkers as far as the relationship to the green. The green a little bit more like the old green shape, a little bit square in the back, but not a tremendous amount of changes. Done basically at the same elevation of the current green. Oh, and not inconsequentially, this path that's behind the green will have to kind of tie in farther back than it currently does, since this green is coming back a little bit. Okay, number 12. There's a lot going on here, and this is another hole I'm really frankly excited about. Let me start with kind of this left side of the levee. I am not going to give a deep dive into this, and it's really hard. We're working with the Tarrant Regional Water District and ultimately the Corps, and we believe fairly strongly that we'll be able to, at some point, alter. I don't want to call remove, because that gives people the completely wrong impression. But basically, if you look over here, this is probably the best way to view it at the current green picture here. The levee is this big hill structure put in 1968 when they were doing the flood control as kind of an intermediate levee in case things got really bad, to protect basically the homeowners downstream here, to contain the water. So as you know, it goes all the way kind of here, and it kind of terminates. It's part of what these tees sit on. These are not going to go down like the original grade, so we're going to leave it here essentially. But instead of having this big, broad, flat topped thing that goes all the way to right here and then right around in here, kind of ties back in, this will be naturalized. So it'll be interrupted in a bunch of places and look a lot more like, a broad hill in places, and then some lows where you can see between 12 and 11 instead of not being able to see them at all. And from 11, you have no idea 12 is over there. And really, even from 12, in a lot of places, you can't see over the levee to look at 11. So 11 and 12 will be connected much more like they used to be. Most of these tree removals here are casualties of that, of the levee removal, and of needing to have trees that are planted kind of on tops or close to the tops of the levees removed. But some of these are not. Some of this on the right side is to change the hole a little bit. And then these right here are because of the other feature. And I'll go ahead and tell you what's going on right here. I'll skip ahead a little bit to G. Rebuild green shifted 75 feet right and a foot and a half lower. So the lower thing is, again, more of the historical reference, but this green is coming over a significant amount. And you can see what the intent is, I think, very well by looking at this picture right here. So here's the existing. Here's the existing tree line that, again, kind of just has a bunch of wall of brush and trees and stuff down to the pond, kind of on the pond bank. If you just took this and slid this over, which is what's going on here. Here's the existing, here's the proposed. You just put this much more intimate to the pond and the tree wall and the bank here than it currently is. So the right side of this bunker, for example, would kind of be rough and ready and kind of start kind of rolling off into the pond bank a little bit here. So 12, which currently, again, just kind of sets, you know the pond's there if you play the golf course and you think about it, but you don't know it when you're playing it. And the idea, I think, is to get it much closer to our watershed and to play where this right side is very perilous. Like, you don't want to go right. A little bit like left of 18 is. You just can't go right here. You might want to, you might be hollering to get in this hazard, but if you're back right, you definitely don't want to go long. So other things of note, I guess, the original historical bunker that Maxwell had in that was taken out in '56, put back in. Other than that, the same thing we have here with a fairway coming back and a new fairway a tee put on the other side to where you don't have to carry the road at all. And this tee can come back. It says 20 yards. Since 8's moving over to here, if 8 green's kind of right here, and since it's moving over, this tee can in fact come back as far as we want it to. So you could have a really a back tee here on 12 to make it play really long. 13. All right. A lot going on here. I'll try to get through it as quick as I can. I've included, as you can see, a original picture to make sure that we have kind of in our mind's eye, or our eye, the historical hole, the Maxwell hole, the open hole that Gil is kind of, I guess, inspired by and clearly trying to get as much of this back as we can. Now, we are limited by certain things, clearly. But when this is done, this is going to look and play a lot more like this one did than our current 13. So, one thing to note here, he'd like to put in a very big teeing complex here. So, if you take our right side tee that, we play occasionally, not a lot of people get to play it. It's a black tee mainly, sometimes a blue tee. And then our tee line that exists right now, right here. If you put all these together, remove these 2 trees right here and put all this together in a complex, you'd have a whole lot of teeing ground, which is great on a par 3. But you're also then able to play different angles all the way from the right to the left that you currently can't. You either have to pick one here or pick one here. So I think that's really neat. Ladies senior tee, same spot it currently is. So let's start trying to kind of unpack this area and then this area here. So currently, we have pond as this elevation. If you drew a line here like so, that would get pretty close to our current water level in relation to this old picture. It's all water, all pond. It's all been planed out. So two things. On C, create sandbar on the far bank, establishing or resembling that of the early photos. So we're not doing this. This is all underwater, and we're not going to lower the lake 10 feet. We're going to lower the lake 2 or 3 feet. But that will expose a little bit more of this, and then we'll also take some material and shove some out here. We'll be moving material down into this area here. So if you look at it here, filling in here. And then naturalizing it, make it look with some rough grass and some whatever, just kind of gnarly, some sand areas or exposed sand or dirt to make it just look a lot more natural. And then on this side, okay, we're doing a couple of things. Build new green raised 3 feet and shifted back 20, 25 yards from existing. So like Maxwell did when we noted earlier, he went up on the Breedemus green and back. We're doing the same thing again, up and back. So we'll end up creating by the lake going down 2 or 3 feet and this coming up 2 or 3 feet, you have essentially 6 feet of elevation change that we don't have at all between the green, the front of the green, and what'll be the pond edge. This wall comes out. So right now we have a wall that does like this. And somewhere in here, I think we'll stop removing it as it comes up and starts supporting the T-line. I think this will remain as it is. That wall can stay. But from here all the way around to here, this will come out and this will just be grass bank, kind of gnarlier grass bank. And that will allow us to put in these wonderful forms that we lost, these rough, big, gnarly bunker forms that Maxwell put in here and here back into this bank. So a combination of adding some material here, taking out the wall and pushing this material out here, and then having more elevation between the edge here and here, we get this put back in. The green shape, a little bit more like the original Maxwell green, and certainly the bunker configuration around it is more like the Maxwell green. We end up with a bunker in the back again. And again, we are not suggesting that this is going to look like the old 13, but it will look and play and feel way more like the old 13 than our current 13 does. It will be a signature hole. 14. Tees, what's interesting is it's kind of in conjunction with the levee thing. The levee area here is not actually going to be removed. This will come up. So some of this material, again, the idea being not to just remove it down to the ground. In fact, this area right here is not really going to change. And this is still a little bit of levee in a way, although it kind of goes this way. But the teen ground on 14 is going to be a little bit more of a raised landform. So the highest point of the back 9 essentially will be here. Not a whole lot different than it is now. It'll just be accentuated even more. Fairway comes back to incorporate this T-line here. So we'll have, again, 2 tees over here on the right side where you can play just left of this cart path here across short grass. Tree removal here, the left side. I'm sorry, tree planting here. Need to be careful on this left side, largely because these bunkers come out. These 2 right here are not original. These that Keith moved over to the left side weren't original either. There was originally no bunkers on 14. So this is what he's going back to. No fairway bunkers at all. These come out, plant trees here to make sure people can't cut the corner. And then the complex here, rebuild the green lower a foot and a half, make it bigger like the original. This bunker form right here, a real kind of free-form Maxwell style bunker here. Basically in the same place, the one we currently have. This bunker doesn't change much at all. We keep the tie-in here in the shortcut to the teen complex. So that feature that Keith introduced, we keep. So a combination of history and keeping a few of the elements that we've added recently. All right, 15. Start back at the tee. This is this shortcut area that ties into the tee. Not a whole lot dissimilar than it does today. We'd like to get the tee back some if we can. We have to work around this the wall structure here. We're not sure, but we'd like to move it back if we can. Not sure how much we can get. These tees come down a little bit in the profile. This is this naturalized area here in front. This is the area we've talked about. Fairway expanded on the left side is this bunker here is basically in the same spot it is now. It's just reconfigured a little bit and made a little bit more free form. This right side's kind of interesting. We get back with 3 bunkers, and these two are very similar to what we have currently. So I'd say the gap here between this pinching area is about the same as the current golf course. This bunker brought back a little bit, and this hill, I think the idea here is planting a bunch of trees, maybe not a bunch of specimen trees, but trees that look more natural as this big hill form that we've always had here gets a little gnarlier. So we have some live oaks and some trees planted here. We would just supplement around them and then have more rough grass and more exposed dirt and areas right here that just looks like a big kind of natural hill form. F, create this left side, same kind of thing, a bunker that then this whole left side is naturalized and just kind of rolls off into the creek here. Rebuild the green in place and lower 2 feet so it sets down. Instead of kind of rolling off to the creek, it'll be much lower to begin with, but obviously be very intimate to the creek here. This bunker is kind of a homage to the Maxwell bunker that you can see in the U.S. Open picture. Grass Island here, a big gnarly bunker. And then remove the small bunker. This bunker right here goes away, and this becomes just kind of shortcut back into the tee like we currently have without the bunker. Okay, 16. I've introduced a picture here from the Open program of 16. So let me do a little bit like I did with 12. Let me kind of start with the green and work back, because there's a lot of subtle but I think really neat things going on with 16 here. So the green basically is coming over almost one whole green. Here's the current location. Okay. And here is the proposed location. So it's not, if you look over here, it's about like building the middle of the green over our current left-hand bunker. This cart path is coming out. The cart path is going up the right side. Okay. So, and then the pond turns a little bit more into a slough. This is one reason why I included this. So, this look here, no wall, much lower elevation between a little bit of water here and the green. We'll get this back. This is this whole had a whole lot of stuff going on here with these elevation changes and things moving up and down in this little cut right here, and it's just again, like a lot of things, we've lost a lot of that over time, and the pond certainly has planed some of that out. So right side will look a little bit more like this, but with the green over. Obviously, getting the green over really helps this choke point, we have over here on the right side. As everybody knows, you have um, activity from this cart path going to the clubhouse right here, the wall over here, kind of the loading dock over here. So getting this green over just this amount just really helps getting some separation between this right side and all the stuff we have going on over here, right and back. The other cool thing about it is that since we're naturalizing this watershed, so this right here, starting about right here, somewhere in this kind of approach, as it goes like this and then, turns and goes between 17 and 18, this left side, when this comes over, will essentially be tied into a naturalized area, new creek bank and new kind of gnarly rough grass and things. So you'll have two things here really enhancing 16. We're getting it away from the clubhouse and the choke point a little bit, getting much more going on this right side here. This slough look back to the right side, and then the left side will be very punitive with this green side bunker, really gnarly, with a backside that just turns into bank. Kind of like we talked about on 7, where we have a very natural form bunker on the left side, like we did on the front of 7, transitioning on its backside into a creek. '17. So back from the tee. So this, in some configuration, is going to be naturalized. We're not sure exactly where. We're not sure how it's going to cut across here, but this is the creek that's going to be naturalized all the way down the right side. So we'll move this fairway back as far as we can, intimate to this bank of the new kind of creek form we're putting in here. And then we'll move this tee as far up to the kind of this bank, the right bank, of that, whatever that ends up being. So there's a little bit of uncertainty here as to where this forward tee is going to go and how far back this fairway can go. But again, the clear intent is going to be not to have to carry on 17 all of that area to get to the fairway. This bunker goes back basically where it currently is. Here again is the naturalization that'll go on to some extent. We really don't know how extensive that'll be. One of the things we're still kind of working through really is, here's the collection area, the big concrete area where it's piped underneath. This area is not necessarily going to be creek. That is, it could remain, like it is. It could get roughed up somewhat and just naturalized. We're really not sure. It all depends on how this creek, when it comes along here, and where it turns and how this part of 17 integrates with what we do over here. Kind of that's currently in development. So we'll just say that this area right here could be a number of things. The approach expands. Some thought to a tree planting here. If we can find a specimen tree to kind of neck this down a little bit more like the Big Annie tree. It's just more a suggestion than anything. The green down a lot. That green, if you think about the back of 17, it's really perched up there. It comes down about 3 feet to set in the ground more. 2 bunkers like the original Maxwell green had, but the green shape stays kind of like the one that it morphed into, in the early 70s or maybe even in the 60s. So a similar shaped green, 2 bunkers. The biggest thing here, the green coming down a lot more, so these green side bunkers will fit better with the green surfaces, and these lips here, again, will get lower. '18. Okay, from the tee, not a lot of note. We have the back tee going down a little bit. Um, so let's start here. This is the newly naturalized creek that's going to flow through here. So we are going to put a new tee on the other side of the bank so that forward tee players do not have to carry that big chasm like we currently do. C, regrade landing area, restoring rolls and uneven lies from the U.S. Open description. Now, this isn't going to be some crazy mounding up and down. I think it'll be very subtle, but again, just a homage to the original golf course. This section at some point got all planed out and used to have some movement to it and a little bit of rolls across the fairway. Try to replant a tree here. The big scoreboard tree that we lost, we can't obviously replace a giant pecan like that, but there is a cedar elm that sits over here. It's kind of a very natural shape to it. We might pick it up and put it here. I think it'll look very, very good there. Pick up a little bit of fairway here. Let's talk about the green complex. I think it's the biggest change by far on 18. So let's start with rebuild green lowering as much as possible 3 feet. So this green is not going to be it goes back a little bit and left a little bit, but basically the same spot it's in right now, and down 3 feet. So immediately 2 things will happen. This wall is also coming out, so the rock wall comes out. We'll end up with some kind of grass bank, kind of roughened up between the left side of the green and the water. So this will be much more kind of natural looking instead of this stark clean wall line shortcut going right into the pond. We'll have some things going on here. This bank will get much steeper since now it's 3 feet lower. This elevation here doesn't change. Cart path area doesn't change. So the green will set down more, and then this bank will become more prominent. And it's just going to be, again, kind of rough grass and not a lot of shortcut here on 18. Really no shortcut on 18 like we currently have. And I think the intent being, again, more like the original green, where, if you went left, you weren't immediately in the pond. You might still be in the pond or in whatever we want to call this watershed over here when we're done with it, but you might not. This bunker gets much smaller. When you think about 18 right now, this bunker is so prominent when you're sitting here, playing the hole. You see this front left bunker as much as anything. So this green down and this bunker smaller from this location, you'll see a lot more green from this area. And these 2 bunkers, not a whole lot of change, just kind of roughened up a little bit and reconfigured. So a new tee here, some fairway rolls established, taking the wall out and making this watershed a lot more natural looking, and then reestablishing a little bit of a left side here and getting the green down. Promise, this is it. You've held in there this long. You are about good to go. I'm going to do 5 minutes of a summation here, just to torture you a little bit longer. But I do think this is really important. If I could collect some of my generalized thoughts here, I'd like to do that here. Completing the circle, past, present, future. I think this is one of my favorite titles. I like this notion, and this is kind of how I've come to think about this, that, if you start at 1935 and you travel through our history, that where we might be right now is kind of right back. We've gone 360 degrees, and we're kind of right back there at that starting point again, and we're about ready to do another one, to start moving around history again, and that this is very similar to 1935 with respect to where we are and what we're going to do, hopefully historically, with the golf course. And I think some of these bullet points hopefully help illustrate that. The first one here is about our history. I enjoyed kind of going through the history of the golf course, and I think it's very important, obviously, like most things, to kind of know where you've been, to know where you want to go. But the other thing about that is I think we generally underappreciate our history and how important it is. You know, you come out here every day. Me as an employee, I come out here to the golf course, and sometimes I have to kind of stop and and recognize, you know, where I am and what I'm doing and the privilege I have to work on a golf course like this. And if you play golf here and you know you come to the club every day, it's really easy to become a little jaded, to lose touch with how important, how unique, how really transformative this place has been, not just in Fort Worth, um, but in golf. And you have, you know, Mr. Leonard and his really significant place in the history of Fort Worth, building the golf course. You have the golf course itself. You have Ben Hogan, uh, the golf tournament, and all of its history. And you look at the Wall of Champions, and it's like, my goodness, you know, all of these people have not just played here, but won here. The men's open, the women's open. We are, you know, a part of an iconic piece of golf history. And I think, to me, the part that goes along with that, and I try to remain connected to this one as I work here, there is a sense of responsibility. I try to think of it that way, to keep the golf course. It's not just taking care of it day to day. There's kind of a responsibility to take care of something that's historically significant. And I think it's the same thing with looking at this work that needs to be done. I think we all collectively do have a sense of responsibility to make it the best that it can be. And in that regard, I think if you look at the 35 and 40 golf courses, and we've outlined enough about them, we don't know everything about them. We'd like to know more, but I think we know enough that we can think about them as kind of the starting point for future work. That resurrecting or using them as inspiration is an important thing to do, rather than just have somebody kind of go in there and do what they want to do or what they think would make a better hole. And in that regard, there is no question that, like he has done at other classic golf courses, and we've showed you a few, and why he's so highly regarded with his work there and why he's brought back by members, um, the master plan he's created, I think, is clearly an authentic version of the historical golf courses. It is not trying to carbon copy them or just put them exactly back on the ground, even if we did know, which we don't in many cases. But it is clearly an authentic representation of the look, feel, playing of those historic golf courses. So bullet point 4 here, this is a really nice summary statement, I think. Combined with the pressing needs of an aging golf course, this architectural work positions Colonial Country Club to, and I like this, be the best version of itself. And this is important for the next 30 to 40 years. So put all this together. You take the features that we've looked at in the previous tutorials, the things that are just wearing out, the things that are aging, things we need to attend to. You combine it with this architectural work, which is trying to get our historical golf courses back as much as possible to be historically true to them. You put all that together, and then new grasses and new everything, and all of a sudden we're at a different place. We're the best version of ourselves that we can be. And then I think this is the time frame that we could realistically expect. This isn't to just barely get around the corner. This is to get us out into the next 30 or 40 years. So this is a big thing. And I would say that the next bullet point kind of builds on that, focusing on the next 30 to 40 years, may seem a little much, may seem like we don't need to take that long a term of perspective. But I guess I would argue that, because the golf course has not undergone a complete wall-to-wall renovation since 1935, this is that circle notion of coming all the way around to where we started. I think that's a lot of time that's passed, and I think you can make a very good case that it is time. It's time to look at this global perspective and a complete transformative wall-to-wall renovation. And then finally, you put all this together, and I think we are at an inflection point, where we can go in a couple of different directions, maybe up, maybe sideways, maybe down slowly. And if we're trying to set a trajectory upward for the next generation, really, again, 30 to 40 years, that's one really long-term approach. Or I think there is our historical, approach, which is much more piecemeal with a much shorter time frame, where you do some little pieces. And while there's clearly not a right or wrong answer, there is nevertheless, I think, a compelling case to be made for all these reasons that we've talked about. He put kind of all the tutorials together, and it strikes me that it is time to do a transformative wall-to-wall project. So, completing the circle. Hopefully, we've completed the circle on the philosophy and the golf course and the history and what we need to do, and that you have some sense that the bigger picture, which I think is really important to get to ultimately, is easier to see. And once again, questions, concerns, clarifications, please email me, call me, visit with me or Mr. Mock. We really hope that this is useful, but at the same time, we don't expect it to be the final word, and are very happy to respond to any questions, concerns you may have regarding it. So, thanks very much for listening to all this.